Hello and welcome. Have you ever been caught in a legal battle that just feels stuck? You know the kind, where all the facts seem to be out on the table, but for some reason, nobody can seem to move forward. Well, today, we're going to dive into a really fascinating way of looking at these problems that goes way beyond the typical courtroom files to find a much deeper kind of resolution. It is one of the most frustrating things you can go through. You've got the documents, you've got your arguments, heck, you might even have the law squarely on your side. And still, the whole thing is just stuck, going around and around in an exhausting loop. So, what is really going on? And that's the real head-scratcher, isn't it? On paper, it should be simple. There should be a clear answer, a right and a wrong. But then you have the human element, all the history, the messy relationships, the unspoken loyalties, and suddenly you've got this massive gridlock that pure logic just can't seem to break through. So let's get right into it and explore why this happens. Why do the normal legal tools we rely on sometimes fall short of fixing the whole problem? Think about it. The traditional legal system, it's really good at focusing on what you can see, the hard facts, the contracts, the evidence. But what our source materials suggest is that the real logjam, the real issue, is actually buried deep beneath the surface. The key isn't going to be found in another legal argument, but in this invisible web of relationships and history that's all tangled up in the case. Okay, so if the real problem is hidden in all these invisible dynamics, how in the world are we supposed to see them? This is where a totally new kind of map comes into play. It's a method for navigating this tricky human territory, and it's called Legal Constellations. So here's the core idea. You need to think of this less like a legal strategy and more like a diagnostic tool. It's a way to make the invisible visible. It's not about pointing fingers or figuring out who's right and who's wrong. Instead, it asks a completely different question. What does this whole system, whether it's a family, a company, whatever, what does it need to find its balance again and finally move on? And this isn't some new age idea that just appeared out of thin air. It has really credible roots that go all the way back to systemic therapy in the work of Bert Hellinger. The same core principles that were so effective at untangling complicated family dynamics have been carefully adapted into a tool specifically for the legal world. All right, so how does this actually play out in the real world? It might sound a bit abstract, I get it, but the process itself is surprisingly structured and concrete. Let's break down the three main steps. So first, you literally set up a living map of the entire conflict, often using people to stand in as representatives for everyone involved. And this is where it gets absolutely fascinating. Just by seeing where people stand, who they face, who they turn away from, all those hidden tensions and loyalties start to bubble up to the surface. And from there, a trained facilitator doesn't give you the answer. They act more like a guide, asking gentle questions to help the system itself find its own path back to a healthier balance. This right here, this really gets to the heart of it. You see, conventional law is looking through a lens focused on facts, rights, and arguments. Legal Constellations uses a different lens, one focused on relationships, belonging, and balance. And the goal isn't to throw one out for the other, no way. It's about adding a powerful second perspective so you can finally see the whole picture. So, let's get to the big so what question. What does looking at things this way actually accomplish? What are the real, tangible benefits for the people involved, the lawyers, the mediators, and especially the clients? Well, the applications are incredibly practical. This approach can bring those deep, unconscious roadblocks to the surface, the very things that are keeping everyone fighting. It can bring amazing clarity to super messy disputes. And that's not just useful for mediation. You can even use these insights to design better, stronger contracts from the start. But maybe most importantly, it offers a real path to restoring a genuine sense of peace that a court order by itself often just can't deliver. The source material puts this perfectly. The method offers rare insight into the human factors that courts and contracts alone cannot always address. And that is the key. It gets to our core human needs. The need for belonging, for fairness, for taking responsibility. These are the powerful engines that are often driving the conflict in the first place. So let's bring all this together now and think for a second about what justice can really look like when we're willing to expand our view beyond the walls of a courtroom. And listen, this is a really, really important point to make. Legal constellations are a supportive and exploratory tool. They are meant to add depth, to add insight, but they are absolutely not and should never be a replacement for getting solid legal advice from a qualified professional. It's an and, not an or. And that's really the final idea we want to leave you with. What if the most powerful, most lasting resolution isn't about one person winning and another person losing? What if it's actually about restoring balance to the entire system so that everyone involved can finally, genuinely move on? It's a pretty powerful thought. That's all for today. Thanks for tuning in.